Today we're reading through why Linus Torvalds has rejected the idea of upstreaming LTTNG, the Linux Trace Toolkit Next Generation, into the Linux kernel, as he instead proposed adding a parallel standalone tracing system rather than trying to integrate with the existing kernel tracing infrastructure. This is a big no against LTTNG. So let's get into why this happened and Linus's reasoning. But before we do, we need to understand what LTTNG is. LTTNG is an open source tracing framework for Linux and described on their website. What is LTTNG? As the name suggests, the Linux Trace Toolkit Next Generation is a modern toolkit for tracing Linux systems and applications. So your first question might be, what is tracing? And they explain that below. Well, this is starting to become a long-winded way of saying tracing, and the tracing toolkit is just another toolkit for things like debugging software and doing performance analysis of Linux systems. And this helps you profile and identify performance bottlenecks. Anywhere where you see performance losses, you can use the powerful tracing tool to analyze what's happening inside of a Linux system. Things like performance issues, crashes, and strange behavior. It allows developers to record and inspect detailed low-level events from the kernel and user space. And you can imagine why software developers use this, especially big names like IBM, Sony, Siemens. They all use tracing kits for debugging complex problems that are hard to produce, understanding system performance in real time, and optimizing applications. So there are massive benefits to having LTTNG as part of the Linux kernel, but not in Linus's eyes. And now let's spend some time understanding why. Here's where the proposal started out before Linus gets involved. Hi. It was suggested that the LTTNG kernel tracer be upstreamed and become its own kernel subsystem in a recent LKML discussion. This is Linux kernel mailing list. This would allow this 20-year-old project to move to its development from kernel modules with an out-of-tree Git repository into the Linux tree. The LTTNG kernel tracer repository can be found here. Considering that most recent attempts to upstream it were not successful due to the size of the project, which says 75,000 block or lines of code, and lack of RFC, and Linus did comment to ask what is the best way forward. And I don't think the suggestion from Linus is going to make this particular person too happy. Anyways, continuing on to talking about how LTTNG has developed over the last 20 years. Over those 20 years, we've tried to be good citizens by actively contributing to the Linux kernel within the following area: trace points, restartable sequences, mem barrier system call, or view, and tracing review. Now, you can also be good citizens if you subscribe below and hit that notification bell for more Linux videos like this. You wouldn't want to miss another video. Make sure to smash that like button and back up. And the rest of this I'm going to summarize a little bit because it goes into a lot of history as well as goals of upstreaming and proceeding to upstream. So mainly here, Matthew is proposing finally upstreaming LTTNG, this powerful tracing tool for Linux. After being nearly developed for 2 decades, it's still living outside the mainline kernel, and describes how previous versions tried to get into the kernel, but other tools were chosen over it, like ftrace and performance or perf. And in 2012, they even tried merging it into the kernel staging tree, but maintainers wanted LTTNG to be merged into perf, which wasn't feasible. And finally, in 2020, there was a failure to, again, upstream it into the kernel because the code base was just too large and daunting to go through. Regardless of all this, let's see what Linus has to say about this in response to the upstreaming conversation. Linus replies, honestly, I don't see the point. That's one way to start things out. The reason the current tracing infrastructure got merged was that people were willing to do it incrementally. I was hoping that there would be some kind of eventual merging of the different ring buffers, etc. That was discussed as a hopeful end goal originally, but here we are, decades later, and it never happened. And honestly, I'm not interested in just having 2 different tracing models. If people need 2 tracing models, then the other one will be out of the tree. It's that simple, which I believe Linus just doesn't want duplication, which causes fragmentation when it comes to tracing models. Basically, having parallel tracing systems like LTTNG and ftrace or performance increases maintenance complexity and can introduce extra potential bugs, wasting developer effort. Moving on, because if people haven't been able to agree upon common models in the past decades, I really don't see the point of maintaining 2 models indefinitely side by side in the upstream kernel. So as far as I'm concerned, this discussion is not a discussion. Pretty much ends it up front. Either there's a way to merge things incrementally with shared infrastructure, or there isn't. And then he puts his foot down. No two different and disjoint trace buffers. No two different and disjoint trace interfaces. And very clearly, based on history, the unification will never happen. Signed off, Linus. And Linus's message sounds very blunt here. It's firm as he's closing the discussion right away in a very direct tone. As Linus says no due to too much parallel infrastructure, which he's not interested in. He has no faith in a unification of tracing software as it hasn't happened over the last 2 decades. So it sounds like a total fairy tale here. Also, it's just too big. It's a daunting task. In 2020, a similar discussion took place and people began going through the code to try and unify it. And it just fell through. Basically, people just stopped working on it. It's too big. It can't be incremental. It argues that we already have tracing tools. And unless we want to merge them, we're not adding to the upstream. Now, it's important to understand Linus is not saying this is bad technology. This tracing tool is used by many, many big companies. Again, I mentioned a few of them, including Sony, IBM, and Siemens, but that doesn't mean we should just roll over and start adding things into the kernel. Anyways, let's continue on, as there is another reply from Linus, maybe clearing things up a little bit. But before we get to that, if you want to level up your Linux experience today, make sure to go to
every goal setting system you've ever learned is broken. I'm a leading expert in behavior, and I'm going to show you how to reprogram your mind to finally get what you want. So let's be at setting goals, and it's involved. The entire system that you've been taught about goal setting, it's broken. And it's broken because it doesn't use the part of your brain that literally makes all of the decisions and runs your entire life, the limbic system and our brain system. This is the neurocognitive intelligence, or NCI, goal setting system. Let me show you why this is the most powerful thing that you're going to ever do to reach your goals. Step 1, describe the ideal and perfect outcome with vivid details and measurable elements that allow you to know when you have arrived. So this is like plotting a desired arrival point on a GPS. It's the address. It is the latitude and longitude of your destination. Then we move over to the right here. Write out your least desired outcome if nothing changes. If you just keep doing exactly what you've been doing all along. So we're going to describe in very vivid detail where you're going to arrive if you continue with your current habits, behaviors, mindsets, and worldview. So imagine 2025, if you don't change a thing. Harsh? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. So write it out. Your brain needs contrast, the dream versus the nightmare. And this is where your mind starts to crave the ideal, because staying the same becomes unbearable. Next, we're going to write down milestones, habits, and new beliefs that are going to make accomplishing this goal a byproduct of all of these new traits. The goal accomplishment should always be looked at as, what can I do to make my goals a natural byproduct of how I'm choosing to live my life? How can I make my goals a byproduct? So don't focus on the goal here. Focus on the habits and beliefs that make the goal a natural byproduct of who you are going to become. So goals are destinations, habits and behaviors are the vehicle to the goal. Next, we're going to write out a detailed and very maybe painful list of all the habits, beliefs, and behaviors that you might currently be doing that's going to make your least desired outcome come true. So this outcome will be a byproduct of these maybe negative or neutral traits and worldviews. Here's the truth, though. Your habits today are building one of two futures. Write down all of those beliefs, those behaviors or habits that could just drag you toward the nightmare that you wrote down earlier. Make it painful, because you need to feel the cost of your inaction. Next, we have mammalian brain programming. So how will you use the FATE model to brainwash yourself into getting into new habits, beliefs, worldviews, and mindset? So the FATE model is a system I developed to understand and use the 4 elements that make the mammalian brain start taking action stuff. It's the most powerful tool to understand how to shape human behavior, and there's the most detailed tutorial in the world inside of the NCI textbook, and it's called the Behavior Operations Manual. It's on Amazon. If you want to learn how to use it on other people and conversations, let's get back to the goal setting part. This is about focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. So let's start with focus. Right here, we're going to write, how will you maintain focus on your goals at an animal level, at the mammalian level? Words don't work at this level, so imagery, massive amounts of novelty and changes in your environment and repetition are very important to the mammalian brain because of the reticular formation in the brain. Other people call this the reticular activating system. Whatever we repeat, the brain says, Chase wants more of this, or I want more of this. I'm going to search for it and search for it in life. And the questions our brain is asking about the environment determine what we see. So this is where the nonstop exposure to vision boards start to come in. And a vision board is a collection of visual images which are understandable to the mammalian brain since there's no words there. And these things represent your desires and goals. If you're in your office, get a big ass TV and just go buy an iPad or something that you could just duct tape to the back of the TV and put a slideshow of all of this. This is like 8, maybe 900 images just on repeat forever. It just goes on and on and on. Even while you're sleeping, you're not even in the office. It's on there when you walk in. It's on when you walk out. You leave that on to maximize that level of exposure, getting that done really well. There's a million videos on how to make vision, stuff like that. So next on the list is authority. How are you going to leverage authority figures and social proof to ensure that your mammalian brain knows what you're doing? It's good, it's allowed, and it's very powerful. Now we move into tribe. This is about how can I involve my circle of friends in the achievement of all these new habits and beliefs. Get your friends and social circle very much involved. Make deals with them to keep you in check, bring some accountability into the picture. Next, we get into emotion. How will I create the emotional attachments to this future self, my future self? One amazing way is to download one of those apps that makes you look really old and print those photos out. Hang them around your office, hang them around your house, or put them on your bathroom mirror. Even you can set the photo as your phone or computer wallpaper. And this is done so that you develop a very visual and mammalian understanding and future self. Because one of the huge problems is that people don't prioritize their future selves because it's hard to imagine. They can't see their future self. So we make this happen. This is also another entry point for your vision board. So the more imagery you have on there, the more powerful the emotion is going to start to seep into the mammalian brain, which is going to start changing your worldview and your life. The mammalian brain is where it's at, not the words and all this stuff with the human brain that we always hear about. So the 3 highest leverage new habits to adopt is the next step here. Right here, we're going to develop a deeply powerful list of the most impactful and meaningful new habits that can start and enable all the other things to happen, just like dominoes. Remember that starting a habit only requires discipline for a short period of time. Once it's a new habit, you don't need daily discipline anymore. So keep in mind that it's okay to start small on these habits, and there doesn't need to be some massive shift right away. It might be waking up early, maybe an hour early to get things done, or buying more healthy food, or going on walks more often, practicing mindfulness, meditating, therapy, making more content, building better calendars and plans for yourself, or anything else that you think is going to be a linchpin to get you going in the right direction. Now we move into the actual brainwashing formula, and this is literally a formula for brainwashing, but we're going to use it on ourselves to make some badass changes happen in our lives. So we're going to develop new habits using this brainwashing formula. And this formula spells out the word fear, F-E-A-R, and this stands for focus, emotion, agitation, and repetition. So in the focus part, how am I going to keep these habits in my daily focus where there is no way that I can possibly ignore them? Then we get into emotion. How am I going to bring these habits into an emotional realm where I'm deeply emotionally connected to all of them? Then we get into agitation. This is very important. How will I disrupt my environment enough so that my mammalian brain has no script to fall back on? It doesn't look normal. It doesn't look like the regular everyday stuff. And the novelty is forcing my brain to pay attention. We did a whole other YouTube video on this. What can I do to disrupt my brain's prediction centers? I might rearrange furniture in my house. For some clients, they repainted the inside of their house. They maybe bought a new car. They changed up their wardrobe, etc., etc. How can I disrupt my predict the future? Does it look like what it looks like every single day? If it does, my brain's going to go off of scripts, the scripts that I've always operated on. So the final part of this is repetition. And this is about daily monitoring every single day. It might only take 30 seconds, but how am I going to ensure there is a nonstop exposure to all of these things until the discipline is no longer needed and the habit finally gets formed? The next step is one of the most important, and this is the dopamine map. So what we're going to do here is develop a map where my dopamine sources are coming from in life. And we're going to assign each item a point value that once it's totaled all up is going to equal 100 points. This is likely not where you want to be at the end of this. So under this, we're going to develop a more desired dopamine map. And this is the map of where we like the majority of our new sources of dopamine to come from. And this is going to help us to live the life that we want. So if, for example, alcohol and video games are taking up 60 of my dopamine points, and time with my kids is taking up 20 points, something is wrong. So it's important to be very brutally honest with yourself here. There's a negative and a positive side on these dopamine maps. So where's my dopamine coming from? Is it video games or YouTube or TikTok or Instagram? Or is it family time and work, spending time with kids, or whatever's important to you? This is about figuring out, what do I want my sources of dopamine to be, and consciously choosing those sources of dopamine. That is so critically important to this coming year when you're setting these goals. So whatever you want to do this year to change your life, remember that everything in your life will come down to habits, beliefs, worldview, and discipline. Beliefs are the most difficult to change for a lot of people. So if you're a subscriber, the next video that I have coming out will be the most advanced and most comprehensive video about changing your beliefs that has ever been made, and I can guarantee you that. Thank you for watching. You can download this brainwashing goal sheet right here. I'm going to put a link down in the description, and I want to remind you that you don't need anybody's permission to change.
New message from Edwin. In front of Aiden Hotel, 2 passengers.
And now is the time to set that new waypoint on the map. No more drifting, no more waiting. If confidence is one of your goals, there is a complete mental reboot program called Confidence Reboot, and I have made a hypnosis audio program that you can listen to absolutely free every night. That's going to start this transformation off in the right way for you. It's in the link in the description down below as well. I want this to be the best year of your life, because this year it's about the journey to your destination being amazing, not just the destination. This year is the journey, and I want you to appreciate that journey, and I want you to use this system to make it fun. Thanks for joining me. One love. What if I
Morning, how are you? Good, how you doing? Good, thank you. It's cold, isn't it?
A little today, yeah.
Go international airport
Yes, please.
within 20 minutes. Let me know if temperature is okay, because it's cold, I can change it.
Thank you.
you're shown to this little teacher's station. At this desk right here, you're going to be seated, and there's a large electrical box there with different shock levers on it, ranging from 15 volts to 450 volts. And right after the 450 volt mark, there's some letters that say X, it says danger, severe shock. So next to the machine, there is a clipboard with groups of words on them. You read them out to the person in the other room. And as you can repeat, every time they get the shock. So Dr. Milgram was average height. From all accounts, he was a serious dude. He grew up in the Bronx. Many of Dr. Milgram's extended family still bear Nazi concentration camp tattoos. So this left a huge of the obedience experiment. And Milgram simply wanted to know if it was true that, as Eichmann said while he was standing trial in Israel, that he was just following orders. So inside the Milgram experiment, the learner is in one room, the teacher, which is you, are in the other room, shocking this person because the person in the lab coat's telling you next to. With every incorrect answer, as the voltage increased, the teacher was told the microphone was just one-way communication tool to the other room, but he could hear the protests. He could hear screaming and pleas for help from the other side of the wall, and the sounds of the learner in pain. They were coming from a record player, actually, in real life, with pre-recorded screams and all that kind of stuff. He even says he has a heart condition. He wants to stop the experiment. All kinds of stuff is going on, and this guy in the lab coat is continually telling them to increase the voltage with every wrong answer. So you can imagine participating in something like this could be pretty damn stressful. That's why we don't have experiments like this anymore. But they continued shocking the other person. So initially, these scientists got together. They predicted that 99% of people would outright refuse. They argued the only people who would go all the way through with this were psychopaths or sadists. And they predicted only 0.1% of people would go all the way. But in fact, 65% of people about went all the way to maximum voltage. 250 volts can kill you. How many people do you think went all the way up to 250 volts? Surprisingly and sadly, it was 100%. So, of course, if somebody interviewed you and asked, would you go all the way up to 450 volts? You'd bet anything that you own, you would never do anything like that. And you'd be able to resist the experimenter. I would walk out of the room. The experiment has been replicated dozens, if not hundreds of times with about the same results. Most people go all the way. Everybody obeys to some extent all the time. So why then do people obey? The experimenter didn't issue orders. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. He didn't make demands. He didn't have some secret persuasion technique. There was no hypnosis being used. They just listened. So let's look at a few more experiments here. I want you to investigate these with me. Another experiment that, in my opinion, is even scarier. A person volunteered to take a survey. They show up in a room. There's several other people who are already sitting down taking the same survey. And they're not knowing these people, these other people in the room are all actors. Smoke starts billowing from a nearby door. They see the smoke. They look around at the other volunteers, which are the actors in this one, and they seem not to care at all. So the actors have been told simply do nothing. So now smoke is starting to fill the room. Smoke detectors are going off and beeping like crazy. It's starting to look even more like there's a genuine emergency here. So the actors see the smoke, then they casually go back to filling out the survey. In this experiment, 100% of people sat in the room long enough to die of asphyxiation. And if the fire had been real, 100% would have died. So could this happen in real life, though? It actually did. In May of 1979, a cab driver reports a fire coming from a Woolworths department store in Manchester. They found some bodies. They found most of the bodies in the restaurant. And it turns out people hadn't left because they wanted to pay their bill. They're operating on this social script that's just written in their mind. Nobody wanted to deviate from the group, and nobody wanted to be the first to really stand out from the rest of the crowd. So let's perform one more investigation into an experiment that shows how powerful this is. I want to introduce you to this guy here. His name is Dr. Solomon Asch. So the experimenter shows them with two pieces of paper, holds them up, puts them on the table there, and one of them had a line drawn down the middle on it. Other sheet had 3 lines on it, just A, B, and C, and the students were simply just asked to determine which of the 3 lines was equal in length to the line on the other page, which only had 1 line on it. So 9 out of 10 of the students at the table were actors in the experiment, and only 1 person in the room was the actual participant. The actor students, obviously, would deliberately choose the incorrect line on the right. And Dr. Asch was just curious if the student would conform to the answers given by all the other people. So guess what? They sure did. They denied the evidence right there in front of their own eyes and went along with the group behavior. So Dr. Asch, concluded that students mostly conformed for 2 basic reasons. They either wanted to fit in with the group, or they trusted the opinion of the group more than their own. So changing your behavior to fit in is called normative influence, and trusting a majority opinion over your own is called informational influence. No matter where you look, for the rest of your life, you're going to start seeing this behavior. Social media has made it even more powerful, just increasing the size of a group that can influence a person. And then they're only going to expose you to the news and the opinions that they want you to see, exactly what they want you to see. So your behavior is conforming in ways that we're not even fully aware of. So people are going to tell you these experiments are about obedience to authority. I mean, Dr. Milgram wrote a book called Obedience to Authority. So authority essentially has 5 components. We're talking about obedience to authority. According to me, in my training, there are 5 components to authority that I teach. Those are confidence, discipline, leadership, gratitude, and enjoyment, or a sense of enjoyment. So these are very precise, and we're going to dig into these in a video next week. So if you're subscribed, you'll get a notification when that one comes out. But there's something missing. It's not just authority. This video is about what the hell these experiments missed. So let me show you right now. So I want you to imagine you're a volunteer in the Milgram experiment that we just talked about. You see the ad in the paper. You drive to a building that you've never been to before. You walk upstairs you've never walked down, into a hallway you've never been to meet people that you've never met before. You see a machine on the desk you've never seen before that's supposed to shock a human being, which you've never done before. There's a brand new room you've never been in. There's new smells. There's new sounds. There's a new test. There's a brand new experience. New words that are unusual for the experimenter. This is what they missed. And it's called novelty. And I want to show you how powerful this is. And my goal here is to persuade you to what you thought was going on with these experiments. So when something unexpected happens, or something new is occurring, our brains ramp up our level of focus, which makes us more suggestible. Focus kept our ancestors alive. Therefore, they passed down this instantaneous focus switch to us to do the same. And when something is unexpected or new, we become focused on it instantaneously. This is not one of the things that we
Morning,
can just
Dario.
turn off. It's built in.
How's it going? Good, thank you. How are you? International airport.
To TV shows we can't stop watching.
We'll be
The
there in 30
injection
minutes.
of novelty is the fastest entry point into the human mind. And I'd like you just to imagine the Milgram experiment again without any of the novelty. The guy in the lab coat is the volunteer's roommate, and the experiment is taking place in a familiar place, like maybe the volunteer's apartment. So it's in his own house. the person in the lab coat's roommate. Boom, authority goes to zero. Even if you replace the person in the lab coat with the professor, authority goes to zero. The novelty is not high enough to produce a tremendous amount of focus. So in order to leverage any authority, focus has to be present first. And the fastest pathway to focus is novelty. Something new is happening. So no matter how confident you are, no matter how much authority you have, if focus isn't there, you're getting nothing in return. We've inherited a lot from our ancestors. It's all built in there to help us survive, but sometimes these inherited traits make loopholes in us that can be hacked by somebody with training, skill, and in other situations, it can be leveraged to help a person, to maybe stop somebody from a negative behavior or change somebody's life entirely. The ethics live in you, not the technique. This is only part one of the series. And in the next video, we're going to investigate the 5 characteristics of true authority and how to get them. And I'm going to show you exactly how to seriously level up your life when it comes to influence and persuasion. Use these wisely. We rise by lifting others. This is something you can do. You have more training in this now than 99% of the world. Thank you for spending time with me today. I can't wait to see you again in the next one. Love you.
Yeah. You retard. What the fuck they give the licenses people? Fucking retarded. Oh. Such is life. Why not meant to be mixed with retards? Doesn't matter. Building patience. Lesson 1.
Breaks down the front door, rifles, flashbangs, chaos. The woman inside, 68 years old. She lives alone. She's never broken the law. Her mistake? A Wi-Fi network the cops thought was hers. That's all it took, an IP address and a weak password. Here's the reality. Law enforcement treats your IP address like it's your fingerprint, even though it's not. And if your neighbor, a hacker, a random drive-by criminal hacks your Wi-Fi, the cops aren't going after them, they're coming for you. In this video, I'm going to break down number 1, exactly what to say and what to do to protect yourself from cops if they show up at your front door claiming you did something illegal on your Wi-Fi network. Number 2, I'm going to show you how to lock down your Wi-Fi network so cops aren't able to do this and other people aren't able to do anything illegal on your Wi-Fi network either. Then number 3, we're going to tie it all together to make sure you're not the next headline on the wrong house raid by the police. Because this isn't paranoia. This is police policy, and you need to know about it before it comes to you. Let's start with reality. These stories I'm going to share with you, they're not hypotheticals. They're real homes, real cases, real trauma, and real mistakes by the police. Case number 1, Buffalo, New York. It's 6 a.m. FBI raids this man's home, pulls him out of his bed, claims he's been looking at inappropriate child content, and now he's being cuffed and arrested. He's now laying face down in front of his family. His crime, he didn't do anything. It was learned later his neighbor had hijacked his Wi-Fi and done all kinds of things that may have been illegal. No charges were filed, but it didn't save him from being shamed, arrested, having to hire a lawyer, and fight it in court. Case number 2, Evansville, Indiana. Louise Milan suddenly hears glass shatter. Flashbangs go off in her living room. She's 68 years old and she's innocent, but her IP address matched an online threat. Cops never took the time to check and see if her Wi-Fi was open. It was. Even though she brought a lawsuit against the police, she never got her peace of mind back. Case number 3, Seattle, Washington. David Robinson and Jan Boltman run a Tor exit node. Cops trace what they think is illegal traffic on their IP address and they raid their house at dawn. Now, they weren't the source. They were just the relay, but they were treated just like suspects. Okay, let's stop. I know what you're thinking. What is a Tor exit node? A Tor exit node is the final computer in a Tor network that connects your encrypted traffic to the internet. It's like the last hop before your internet request reaches the website you're visiting. Essentially, it decrypts your data and sends it to its destination, making your true IP address hidden from that website. And Tor networks are still being used daily by more than 6.75 million people. And police are very open about the fact they continue to monitor these exit nodes. So the risk, it's still very real. Finally, what about the case of the Kansas farm, where more than 600 million IP addresses were mapped to a single rural home? Strangers harassed these homeowners for years. Cops continued to show up and investigate them, all because of a GPS database glitch. And here's the twist. None of these people did anything wrong, but their routers became crime scenes and their homes became police battlegrounds. So let's break down how all of this works. Your IP address, it's not you. It's a breadcrumb, a rough GPS ping to your modem. That's it. But when cops get that ping, they assume it is you. Here's how it plays out with the cops. A supposed online crime occurs. Number 2, an IP address is logged by the police. Number 3, your internet service provider then gives your name to the police. And number 4, cops show up at your front door. No follow-up by the police. No checking for actual roommates. Maybe open routers or shared devices. It's just you. Center stage, because it's your IP address. Now, thankfully, some courts have started to push back. In the case of United States versus Bosberg, a judge ruled that an IP address alone should not be enough to justify a search.
Exactly.
The court made it clear your IP address is not supposed to be your fingerprint. But in reality, law enforcement continues to treat it just like that. Let's say it this way. Cops trying to use your IP address to pin a crime on you is like blaming the mailbox for the contents of a letter. It makes no sense, yet it happens every day. So let's say cops think they have your IP address and they think you've done something wrong. Now, they can't exactly arrest you or investigate you just yet. But most people, they give cops what they want without even realizing it. If the cops don't have this is where a police knock can turn into a catastrophic mistake. Let's break down the exact tactics cops are trained to use in this situation. Tactic number 1, the traditional old-fashioned knock and door. A friendly voice on the other side. Mind if we come in? You know you've done nothing wrong, so you say yes. Unfortunately, that is now consent. Tactic number 2, the bluff. Let's say you're smart enough to know cops aren't coming to your front door just to have a conversation. So you decide to say, no, officer, I do not consent to a search. They then turn around and bluff you and say, if you don't let us in now, we'll be right back with a warrant. Translation, they don't have one. Remember, you always have a right to refuse consent to a search, and you do not have to answer any of the police officer's questions. Tactic number 3, consent by stealth. Let's say you did allow the officer to walk into your house, and now they're walking around, and without actually asking you directly, they walk over and just say, oh, okay, I just wanted to check out your router real quick. They don't ask your permission. You don't say no.
My wife,
the officer's going to claim because you didn't say no, you gave them permission. And
I love y'all.
finally, if you say no to everything the officers are claiming, they may pull out the old trick of the fake emergency. They might say, we thought we heard screaming in the back there. We must come in under exigent circumstances. Or
I mean, to bondage retard.
Someone in this house might be deleting evidence. So let's break down exactly how to respond. Now, I want to pause and ask, how do we really know if the news we are reading is unbiased and fair? With competing narratives, media bias, and big tech censorship, cutting through the noise to see what's really happening isn't always easy. Luckily, there is a solution. Ground News gives you the freedom to discover whether what you are reading
freedom
is unbiased and fair.
Give me your money. This guy just stuff. Right.
我拿着呢。然后你给我别放，别放一会儿。这喜欢不好的，我真的。学吧，你看吧。这是在海南吗？是在海南。哪里双呀？以为是在日本卖的，不是在韩国卖的。对，对，在韩国。没事，我就拿着吧。我拿着也不重，他就不我钱了。我们先去一起睡吧，睡，然后去。我也想上。不，婷婷，你先看一下你们俩是不是确定就是有6斤，然后每斤30公斤，你先确认一下。如果要是你们2个人试的话，那到时候就你们2个人去退税，我先去排队把我的纸吸纸了，因为我那人会很多。嗯，我是有钱的。你看一下妈妈的呀，订单都在你那儿。哎妈，我甚至是32。那就把重的箱子拖到你那儿3件，好吧？就算2件，他也能拖得了。这有3个大箱。对。你到时候去但是如果是3个大箱子都拖你那儿，你那个下面那个药多不多？那个药不多，就是1包。也行吧。对，我是怕到时候那个药多，别到时候在海关查，因为我每个箱子上面都放了一些药。哎妈，正好5个。哎妈，就是咱们家不是有2个分箱子吗？然后那个小一点的分箱子它还有地方吗？小点的分箱子它里面还有地方吗？有？没有了？那 肯定到时候那些退了税的东西，怪重的。你也不用都放，你只要把衣服放进去就行，因为鞋是要给你放在黄箱子里的，鞋怕到时候给你压了，你就把它放到黄。哦哦，啊，但是手掂着多累呀、我说手掂着那些个袋子多累呀、咱们只要把衣服把睡衣那箱子就老妈是2个，你确定你的鞋不会有事儿是明天？不是，我是说他的鞋就是托运走，到时候那暴力托运给你挤来挤去的。哦，我懂你的意思。
It's 5:30 in the morning. A SWAT team breaks down the front door. Rifles,
Special needs drivers today are fucking hell. So, you know, challenging, challenge people. It's a big challenge. Special edition. Retards. Oh, dude. What's that, bro? Skills pay the bills.
Hi, my name's Chris. I live in Australia, and violent crime is on the rise in this country right now. We're seeing gangs, criminals breaking into good people's homes, home invasions, and these criminals are coming through. They're armed with knives, bats, machetes, even guns. Australians are currently so defenceless that it's illegal in this country for a woman to have pepper spray to defend herself in an attack, except for Western Australia, which had a little bit of common sense, at least giving women the right to be able to carry pepper spray. All the other states, it's illegal. Can't have pepper spray to defend yourself. And violent criminals, they know this. They know that Australians can't defend themselves. And they're breaking into people's homes, home invasions. They're coming through with the machetes. They're cutting people up. They're beating people to a pulp. They're tying people up. They're abusing women. SA on women is occurring in this country from gangs breaking in. Children are getting traumatized. Children are getting abused. Children are getting stolen. Enough is enough. The current laws in place in Australia give protections to home invaders. It gives protections to them. It gives them rights when they break into someone's home. The laws for the person whose home is being invaded, it's all around self-defense to proportionate, reasonable force when there is an imminent threat. Okay? And that's wording changes across the states, but it's around that. Reasonable and proportionate. If the person trying to defend themselves in their own home, if their defense is considered to be disproportionate or excessive, they can be charged with assault, aggravated, or even manslaughter or murder. This means if an intrudes into your home in the dead of the night and you clock them across the head with a cricket bat, you can be charged with assault, you can be charged with manslaughter if they pass away from it, you can be charged with aggravated assault, okay, because you're using a deadly weapon. Now, if pepper spray was legal across all of the country and an intruder breaks in and they're running at you across, from the kitchen and you pull out your pepper spray and you go, mace them in the face with it, you could be charged at that point, if they were unarmed, hypothetically unarmed, you could be charged with assault from that one, okay? Because they were unarmed, you had pepper spray, you had the weapon, they did not. Is it proportionate? Is it reasonable? You could be charged even though they're the one breaking into your home. Castle law is being proposed in Queensland, and so far the petition has over 40,000 signatures on it. A castle law is for the victim of a home invasion to be able to defend themselves, others they're with, and their property without prosecution after the fact. It should be a fundamental right to be able to protect yourself in your home, the others in your home, and your home in general from a home invader or a gang of home invaders. It gives the right.
How about paying better to the parents so the kids are better educated instead of violence? Stupid. All violence. Pay better people, for fuck's sake. Keep them education. Spend the money in education, not stupid, retarded shit. Brings violence. I forgot they're retarded. Yes, violence. Kill everyone. Boom, 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 boom. Pew, 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 pew. This guy needs 2 lines. This must be new. Let's disappear.
The best way for 2 people to keep a secret is if one of them is dead.
Jeez.
This is how to completely erase yourself from the internet in 5 steps. In 2017, I was swatted.
Major commotion this morning. Police storming Whispering Oaks Lane.
An anonymous call was placed to my local law enforcement that I had murdered people and was holding others hostage. And it was after this that I decided I was going to spend the time to figure out how to disappear. There are 5 steps to completely erasing yourself from the internet. I felt like I needed to get to stage 4, and that gave me a level of comfort so that I could sleep peacefully at night. Can you disappear from the internet? What are the trade-offs? That's what we're going to talk about today. Step 1. Installing ad blockers on your devices is one of the lowest hanging fruits that you can accomplish in order to decrease corporate surveillance. The big 2 companies are extracting $700 per year from your information. It can cost you $100,000 over your lifetime. Ad blockers are not so much about stopping the annoyances of people trying to sell you things on their websites. Rather, it's about a deeper underlying problem. The corporate surveillance machine that is building a profile on you and using that to discriminate against you. Digital discrimination is what happens when corporations employ various tactics to surveil you and build profiles about you. For example, if they catch you using higher-end luxury computing equipment, they may jack up the prices on you. The internet's highly booby-trapped. It's not just about which websites you go to, it's also how you interact with internet services. For example, are you searching for health-related questions? All of these things get factored into your profile. What do you lose? Well, you'll probably find that some of the services that you deal with simply don't operate quite as well when the ads are blocked. And this may, in fact, completely break some of those websites. Step 2, kill the spies inside your house. Your TV is a snitch. Your vacuum is a wiretap. You're giving your data not only to that one company, but potentially to dozens of others as well. And these are often referred to as trusted partners or sub-processors. Your data gets leaked not only to one place, but to many different places, thus exponentially increasing the likelihood that it makes it out into the wild. The optimal solution here is to ditch those smart devices. Don't buy them in the first place, or if you do, don't enable their Wi-Fi functionality so that they can phone home. But in some cases, this isn't an easy option. One possible solution here is called the Pi hole. What is a Pi hole? This is some software that was designed to be able to run on an incredibly cheap computing device called a Raspberry Pi. And the goal of this software is to completely black hole any network traffic that is going to leak your data to third parties. Here's what we gain. We stop leaking as much information. You are adding more complexity to your home and to your network. Configuring a Pi hole is not exactly straightforward if you're not very technical. If this Pi hole device stops working for some reason, you may have other issues where other devices and other applications stop working. Step 3, live 100 separate lives. Having a single email account is one of the most dangerous decisions that you can make when it is in fact a control point for all of the other services that they're using. Your email account becomes a single point of failure. I will have so any specific physical address that I am living at. I'll have one identity, email address, name, phone number, credit card, so on and so forth that I use for things associated with that particular silo. That way I can reduce the total number of accounts that I have to keep track of to just a handful rather than potentially hundreds or thousands. You have to take great care not to cross-contaminate the different identities. You don't want to put the phone number for one identity into a service provider that's owned by a different identity, for example. Because the entire point here is that you're operating under the assumption that this data, this identity stack, can and likely will eventually get leaked, whether maliciously or through legal means and data brokers. And by keeping all of your identities segregated, you can ensure that a compromise does not ripple out across all of the different aspects of your digital life. This comes with additional complexity. So by creating these segregated identities, you now have a lot more moving pieces that you have to manage. Step 4, burn the paper trail. So there are many different aspects of your day-to-day life that are a matter of public record, especially when it comes to property ownership. Really anything that is regularly taxed, whether that be real estate, vehicles, boats, any of these things, most people tend to register in their real name. And those create publicly searchable records that are then ingested by a number of different providers and data brokers. That makes it very, very easy to find where most people live. So I have not given up conveniences like owning real estate, owning vehicles, and so on. But legally, I don't own them. I have corporations, trusts, and other legal entities to make it very difficult to determine that the true beneficial owner of those properties is actually me. If you're going down this route, I would recommend looking for attorneys that deal in wealth management, that deal in helping high net worth individuals. They are more likely to have also set up privacy preserving legal structures before. The DMV tends to have the most onerous requirements when it comes to reporting your address of residence, and they want multiple different proofs of residence. And really the only way I found around this is to actually have a decoy residence. By that I mean find the absolute cheapest apartment that is available for rent that will get you a utility bill and a physical mailbox address. That will generally be sufficient to appease your local DMV. One of the things that you have to do when you get to this level is you basically have to attack yourself on a regular basis. You have to pay private investigators, skip tracers, so on and so forth, to use the tools at their disposal to determine whether or not you have made any mistakes. By completely burning your paper trail, you put yourself into a position of extreme security against various threats. You can no longer be doxxed. You can no longer be swatted. This is a level of freedom that I find very peaceful. It lets me sleep better at night, but it comes at great cost. You are now operating with near complete invisibility, but you have to maintain a heightened sense of paranoia. Step 5, disappear completely. Past this point, it's no longer about data hygiene or your daily habits. It's about completely erasing your existence. No more phones, those little surveillance devices we all carry around. No more smart devices in your house that ping third-party service. No modern cars either, as they tend to be surveillance devices on wheels. Travel service that is going to KYC you. That is any ticket that requires your government name to be on it and is going to get checked against a government identity. That takes all airplanes, trains, and a lot of boats off of the table. You're probably going to be limited to car-based travel. And even then, you may, in certain parts of the country, have to worry about things like tolls. Personally, I prefer to always carry my passport with me, and I use that whenever I'm required to present identity verification. This is preferable to your driver's license because the passport does not have any address on it. If you give a driver's license to a hotel concierge, you should expect that they're probably going to type out the address that's on your driver's license and put that into their system. So don't even give them the option of doing that in the first place. The only way that you can really ensure that no human ever leaks any other information is to never come in contact with any system or any human to even give them the opportunity to do that. This is the final frontier of privacy. If you get to this point, you don't have to worry about corporations or really any bad actors finding you and coming after you, and any of this information being used against you in any number of ways that are difficult to predict. Those are the 5 steps to completely erasing yourself from the internet. Each of you will have to decide what level of trade-off between convenience and privacy you're willing to achieve. But you don't have to go all the way all at once. You can start at step 1, see how that goes.
Morning, Philip. Good, thank you. How are you? Sure.
so much, Philip.
Thanks very much.
Have a great day.
Take it easy.
Thank you. Skills that they don't pay the bills, actually. My skills is just to train me. It's a new human simulation. Bye, Boomer. Bye. What's the simulation? Show me. My channel. We need justice. How we do that music? $5. What I do with $5? I spend only once. Frustrating. How much I can handle? Fucking ridiculous. Can't do that. Okay, we're building resistance. We can do it. Let's go, lava. Lava. Resistance. Much retardation. My brain starts to rot for real. Ah, shit. All those years of learning for nothing. Behavior. How we should behave.
What if you could flip a hidden off switch and instantly shut down any narcissist control? They've hacked your emotions, but today you take back the power. There are 3 things you need to know if you have a manipulator in your life right now. It's an acronym called FOG, FOG. Manipulators will use one of these 3 methods to get what they want. So let's talk about what that acronym means. F is fear, O is obligation, and guilt. So now you'll be able to categorize them when you hear manipulators speak to you. Next, one more thing you need to be able to determine is what the manipulator is seeking. You'll always be able to spot one of the 4 CAVA signs, C-A-V-A. This is about what they are trying to gain. And this is control, approval, validation, and attention. Now that you know this, here's how to deal with these people in your life. The first thing is mirror their intentions, not their actions. So instead of reacting to their manipulation, reflect back their underlying intent. If they're being passive aggressive, recognize the insecurity behind it and respond to their need for validation without validating the manipulation itself. And I promise we're going to go into this. So here's some practical application tips here. Identify the core intention behind their manipulative behavior. So are they seeking approval, control, validation, or attention? Just by looking beneath the surface of what they're saying or doing, you can better understand what emotional need or strategic outcome that they're really. Respond to the need, not the method. Once you've identified a goal, address it directly, but on your terms. This might involve maybe offering a different solution, reframing their request, or simply acknowledging their feelings without caving to the manipulation itself. Stay calm and composed. Manipulators will try to stir up strong emotions because it makes us more malleable. By mirroring intentions calmly, you're signaling they're not emotionally compromised, which diminishes their control over the situation. As an example of this, if a coworker says, if you don't finish this project for me, I'm going to have to stay late, and that would totally ruin my weekend. But I guess you're too busy to care. This manipulative statement is designed to make you feel for their well-being and obligated. So you can see exactly what's going on with fog and kava here. So your reaction, mirroring their intention, might be something like, I can see that you're stressed and trying to manage your workload. What do you think both of us could do differently so you don't have to stay late? Here you're acknowledging their concern, which is the intention of avoiding extra work without falling into the brain trap of doing all the work for them or accepting the blame. Let's talk about the dynamics at play. One, we're redirecting focus. When we mirror intentions, you shift the focus from emotional manipulation to problem solving or mutual understanding. This disarms the manipulator as their power comes from keeping you entangled in the emotional back and forth. Two is maintaining autonomy. So this approach prevents you from being needs in a way that aligns with your values and your boundaries. You stay in control of your decisions while still engaging with the other person. Three, preempting escalation. Manipulators very often, so by mirroring their intention, you cut off this path because you're not giving them the emotional reaction they need to escalate the manipulation even further. And this diffuses the situation early on. To get better at mirroring intentions, practice identifying emotional needs in everyday conversations, even non-manipulative. So for example, if somebody says, you never call me anymore, they're likely expressing a need for connection or validation rather than the literal complaint of not receiving calls. This practice is going to hone your ability to see beneath the surface, which is so important when you're dealing with manipulative people. Next, use silent reflection. When a manipulator pressures you, pause for a moment of silence before responding. Practice this right now. This disarms them because it signals that their tactics are not controlling the pace of the interaction. And it also gives you space to think and observe their real agenda. When manipulators employ tactics like guilt tripping, gaslighting, or creating a sense of urgency, they aim to throw you off balance so that you respond without thinking. Silent reflection creates this momentary gap where you can evaluate the situation, recognize the manipulation, and choose a
Hocus pocus. Focus in the big picture. There is the picture. Three hours suffering. Not bad. Getting better. 3 hours of suffering without thinking of killing myself is a step up. I'm getting better. tired of this experiment. I'm sick of it already. I can do it. Oh, give me a break. Take 2 experiment. Take 3. Here we go again. Ah, dude. My brain hurts. Stop. I can't stop now. Be halfway. We can do this. No connections, no collaborations. Humans are useless. Thanos was right. It's a joke. Okay, relax. We all useless. I'm just mugging you. Piece of shit. Okay, what we got today? What's the news? You need to know this. Okay, we need to know this.
There are 3 ways, if I were a criminal,
then I would hack you, find your data, and stalk you. I'm former CI officer Jason Hansen, and my mission is to help keep you
What's up,
safer in this
Hansen?
unpredictable world we live in. And there's a lot of stalkers, and unfortunately, women come to me, and I help them, and I don't want you to be one of them. So what are 3 ways? Well, first way, we're always doing the simplest first. If I was a criminal trying to gather information about you,
You are, you're
is
CIA.
to write it here in my super. It
You
can't
like
even
this
write because
shit.
I'm thinking here. We'll do this. All right. Social media. That is the first way I'm doing. So if I'm trying to begin stalking you, hacking you, stealing your privacy,
What you doing
I'm
now?
going to Facebook, I'm going everywhere else, and I want to see what information and what clues you leave.
Okay.
So for instance, where did you go to high school? Where did you go to college? I want to see what pictures are on there. So what town does it
Stalker.
say you live in? What do you have pictures of a town? Is there a donut shop where you're like, hey, I go to this donut shop every day at 6 a.m.? So I'm doing a very thorough social media sweep, which isn't hard, and that lends a lot of information. So that is step 1. Okay. So what is step 2 that I'm going to do? I'm going to go to, let me write it out, people, finder, websites. There are a lot of people finder websites. There's Spokio. I think there's one called peoplefinder.com. I don't remember what they are. There's like a bunch out there. But I'm going to go to these people finder websites, and they give you a ton of information. Some of it for free, and some of it you only got to pay like $20. It's not that much.
30 bucks,
So
30
next,
bucks,
if I were
bro.
a criminal trying to hack you, steal your privacy, or stalk you, I'm going to the people finder websites. This is why, me personally, I do not own my home in my own name. It's in an LLC wrapped in a trust, and all my mail goes to various UPS stores, mailboxes, etc.
Smart,
So if you go to
man.
one of these people finder websites for me, you're going to find a bunch of different addresses, and I don't live at any of them. Which is why not too long ago, when a knucklehead sent an email to my company, was like, Jason, you thought you were so smart. Here's your home address in Cedar City, Utah. I didn't email him back because I never email these knuckleheads back. But if I would have emailed him back and said, go wait at that address. You're right. You found my house. Just go wait in the front door, and you'll be waiting for the next 20 years because I don't live there. So you've got to be careful. These people finder websites. They reveal a lot of data. And I know it's hard if you're not already doing it, but I've never had mail come to my house. When I was in the CIA, I had a P.O. box on my driver's license. Now they don't allow me to have P.O. boxes when I moved to Utah from Virginia. And so it's just a UPS store, which is still a physical address. Okay. And the third way that I'm going to find you, well, 1, I went to your Facebook page. I found out where you live. I found out where you went to high school, college, what you like to do, your restaurants, whatever. Then I went to the people data finder websites. I found out your address and all that kind of stuff. Next, I'm going to go to your hometown if I'm a stalker, psycho, crazy person. Or if I was an intelligence officer, foreign intelligence officer, trying to gather data on somebody here in the United States, because then I know where you live. I can run surveillance on you. As human beings, we're very habitual. So I can say, okay, they go drop off their kid at school at not
the actual device that's transmitting the signal that they're able to geolocate. So much of intelligence is spent identifying and collecting selectors so that when you need to target that individual with high fidelity, you'll know where they are. Whether you need
Okay,
to
give me the
target them for a
target
kinetic strike, like we're talking
now.
about with Israel, or whether you need to target them for a human operation because you need someone to bump them or someone to seduce them or someone to extract information. You always want to know where that person is.
Okay.
And we live in an era where you can do that. You can do that with just commercial technology. That's how advertisers get onto your phone
Boomers
as well.
are the best
They
for that.
geo-target you as a specific user based on your selectors.
Easy job.
So is it difficult to collect that
Give me only
information?
boomers,
No,
dude.
but it is difficult to carry out kinetic strikes when you have that information. Because now you have to send
Give me that info,
high
bro.
fidelity
What the fuck?
armaments in
What is
to
what's
actually
wrong with
strike
this?
the target and strike the target where they
Oh
are.
shit,
There's
it's
always a
streaming.
risk for collateral
Fuck.
damage. Maybe the cell phone is
Whatever. Not many
in the
people.
house, but the owner is in the
I trust you
backyard.
guys wherever
So if
you watch
strike
it,
the
if you
house,
watch
may not
it.
strike the backyard if
All I
you're
say
using
was a
highly
joke,
targetable
okay?
device. So there's
What is
always
it, bro?
risk
Why is
associated.
not?
The second
Wow.
question that you had about driving trucks across the Iranian border, this is a two-part challenge, right? First, borders are very difficult to police. That's why you see debates all around the world about how much people can and can't control immigration. The United States is trying to build walls because it understands that the border is very porous. The same thing is true, especially along the coastline. You live in Dubai, think about how much coastline in Dubai is not actively policed, right? How much coastline could anybody just sail a small sailboat up to and dock the sailboat somewhere, park the sailboat with that anchor, and take a little dinghy, and they can walk right into downtown Dubai
Okay,
without
walking in already.
immigration, without anybody even knowing that they're there.
Okay.
The same thing is true
That
for
one's
the
not
desert
here.
border. And the desert border is a lot of what
Only
Iran has to
two
do.
people seems like.
Could somebody get
I
through
trust
the
them.
border? Absolutely. And Iran isn't
Absolutely.
a very wealthy country. It's not like it has a large border control, border protective service. So getting
Okay,
across
no
the border
protection,
may
yeah.
not be as difficult.
It's using
Being able to
VPN.
get across the border and stay there for an extended period of time.
Pseudo powers.
A drone launch facility is not in the realm of realistic.
That makes me question something else. So it's not basically what things like Pegasus are real and what are the actual capabilities. And
I can see your camera.
about how he lives with the fact that he publishes access to all the schools and his phone and everything.
I hear you.
Now I'm in the middle. I know that WhatsApp is encrypted, but I hope whenever I have had in the meeting with people, that
Son of a bitch.
transmissions will work for me. So that's making me kind of bring up those questions again. Can an intelligence service, one as sophisticated as Mossad in the US,
Ubaya. It's pretty crazy though. That's a clone of the access to Telegram. It's a clone of access to WhatsApp. It's a clone to don't matter if you have encrypted system, it doesn't matter because it's a clone. Exactly your system. So I think it's need to dude.
It's not actually safe. The same thing is true with Signal. There's a way to get around all of these tools because as fast as the technology can be created, there are intelligence organizations and criminal organizations who are trying to reverse engineer it.
Do you think a company like Meta would give a backdoor access to the intelligence services?
Absolutely. I think any company that wants to survive in its own legislative environment is going to cooperate with the intelligence services. Because the last thing, anybody like Apple or Huawei or Meta, the last thing they want to do is have government policy turn against them and kill their company. So they will cooperate. Yeah, if you feel like you're safe, you're not safe. I don't know why anybody thinks that there is a capability that just doesn't exist to find who you are, what you're saying, or who you're talking to. In a world where we have terrorists and human smugglers and drug traffickers, in a world where there are bombs that are literally hitting individual targets in Iran and Israel and Ukraine, how in the world do people feel like we're safe anywhere? The only place that you're safe is if you aren't a threat. If you actually don't try to, stir up the hornet's nest, then people just ignore you. But if you present yourself as a threat, then capabilities will be poured into you.
Yeah, I've lived with the fact
Sorry, I was joking. Sorry.
I don't think they listen to all my communication. I've taken measures, but I'm
rolling. I'm retarded.
measures are going to be enough. Little me, I'm not going to be able to compete against the CIA, Chinese intelligence, or any Arab intelligence. So I've just, and especially with AI coming in as well. People talk to ChatGPT like it's their best friend.
Is this Mario?
A lot of these leaders in AI
It's a Mario.
They all have an understanding that privacy is dead. And some of them are even like, Mario, we're actually considering open sourcing everything about us. People have access to our chats, to our emails, everything. We're actually considering that because they know the world that we live in is just no longer a private world. And as AI gets integrated into everything we do, anyone that has access to your agents will have access to literally everything about you. It's a crazy world that needs to potential store. But kind of bringing it back to this, just I would have had a 2-hour conversation with you just about that if it wasn't for a war going on as we speak. Now we've talked about what Israel has done. I want to go to Iran, what Iran's achieved. What was your reaction when you saw their response? You saw 250 missiles on the first day, I think about 100 on the second day, today to third day. About the same. I think a few of them hit southern Israel from memory and caused significant damage. But at the same time, we haven't seen the Hezbollah respond. Houthis responded with barely anything. What's your general take on the response so far?
I think that what we're seeing.
My take is talk less, do more. Okay, stop talking shit, you stupid retard. You can't see it. The whole thing. Fear is the only darkness. What do you hear? I hear the bird. I hear the bird. Nope. How is young? How is practice, bro? Hear what you don't hear. Practice makes perfect. Perfect move. Let's be unpredictable. Expect that one. Pick the most funny outcome. Fucking hilarious. Fear the only diagnosis. Thanks for playing today. More. Just kidding. I'm so fucking tired, boss. This project is killing me, dude. Not getting paid enough for this shit, bro. Seriously, I'm not getting paid enough. Are you guys getting? Bye.